All right, welcome to part 2 of the grid drawing assignment. Here I have my reference image of the horse printed out. I also have my transparency that has a grid on it that we'll be using on top of our reference image. And then I have my 12 by 18 drawing paper, a pencil, and a ruler. And those are your basic materials for getting started drawing your grid and getting this grid drawing started. So first things first, we're doing a little bit of math. So our paper is 12 by 18. So 12 inches on this side, 18 on this side, and we're actually going to divide those numbers by 2. And I already have the math kind of set up here. So 12 inches divided by 2, so that'd be 6, because 6 times 2 equals 12. 18 divided by 2 equals 9, so 9 times 2 is 18. And effectively what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doubling the size of our reference image. So the last part that I showed on the computer, I said you want a really large image, you want it to fill up your space. The reason why is because we're going to take a look at this image and we're going to do maybe a little bit of cropping. So we wanted it nice and large, and then we'll crop it a little bit, adjust it to suit our needs. It's okay if it's a little smaller, a little larger than we need necessarily. You can kind of adjust it depending on what you're drawing. So I have it on the back here, 6 by 9. That means I need to take a look at my image and measure my image first. So the width is definitely larger than 9. It's about 10.25, 10 and a quarter. Going this way, we're at about 7 or so. So this tells me I need to crop it down. This is a little bit larger than the paper that we're working with. So we're going to double the size of this image, and I'll kind of show you more about that in a minute here. So 7, that's too tall. We need it to be 6. So I need to figure out what part I need to crop. I really don't need a lot of this extra space up here because that's just blank white. That's just the sky. Also down here there's a little extra space. So I think I can kind of just line it up here. I'm going to make some marks here. So make a mark here and there. This is just kind of approximate. I'm going to kind of line up that mark, try to keep it as straight as possible. Make it nice and dark. Okay. Same with this one. So then I know that it is for sure 6 inches, whoops, tall. All right, and then I need it 9 inches wide. And everyone will be doing this. So 9 inches wide. I'm gonna maybe go from about, actually maybe I'll go from the edge here to this part. So this is where you get to kind of have some freedom and decide what you're going to include, what you're not going to include. Here we go. If you haven't printed your image yet, you can go do that in the library. The video for part 1 will be on the Google Classroom. There are my lines. Now I'm going to cut, but before I cut, I'm going to double check my measurements. So this way, yep, 9. This way from line to line should be about 6. Looks like I was a little bit off, but that's no big deal. It should be just fine. I'm going to cut on these lines. So essentially I will have a 6 inch by 9 inch image. So cut even the white border, cut that off. You just want the 6 by 9 image. That's something I forgot to mention. Sometimes students measure from like side to side, so they'll include that blank part. Don't include that. You're just focusing on just the image. So that's why, just the image is 9 by 6. You don't need any of that blank border around the outside. All right, and then you can recycle those scraps, throw those in the recycling. And now you are going to put your grid on top of your image. Now you'll notice the grid is larger than your image, and the reason why is because we use these for other projects too, where the drawing might be even larger. But ours is a little smaller, so we're not using the entire grid. What I like to do is I like to line it up, at the top, left or right. Either side is fine. And when you lay it down, you should see that it lines up pretty well. And here's kind of a fun trick to double check to make sure everything's set up correctly. You can count these boxes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, there's 9 inches. These are 1-inch boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, 6 boxes. There's nothing else in the other boxes. Now, I don't have some with me at the moment, but you'll want to take a little piece of tape and tape your transparency in place with your reference image. Your reference image eventually will be turned in with your drawing. So you want to keep your reference image safe, and we'll want to keep that transparency on top of that so it doesn't move around and mess you up. So then we'll set that off to the side. I'll add some tape in a minute here. Now you take your paper, and the paper we don't really have to do anything to. It's already the right size for us, but we do have to draw some lines on that paper. So I've got a nice 18-inch ruler, and we're going to measure every 2 inches. So we're going to do some measuring. Every 2 inches. So here we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Make sure you're on that large line. Okay, a lot of times students get confused here. They think it's this one because the 14 is there. The actual line is going to be the very large line there. Okay, just make sure you're on the right marker. So I made little tick marks. Now I'm going to move down. I'm going to do the same thing down here. Line up my ruler. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16. Okay, the reason why we do it on the top and the bottom is because we want to line it up and make sure that our lines are straight. If we only measure one side, chances are our lines might be a little crooked when we line our ruler up, and it's not going to look very good. It's kind of a warped grid then. So now I'm going to just line up with the top and the bottom mark that I made, and with a very, very light pencil line, very light. Sometimes it helps if you even hold the pencil way back here and whisper, because it needs to be very, very light. Draw a very light line with your pencil. Okay, you might not even be able to see that, it's so light. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah, very light line. The reason we want to keep it light is because we want to be able to erase it when we don't need it anymore. You don't want anyone to know that you used the grid method for this. Nice and light, and you're just going to keep lining up those marks. Draw a light line. Next one. Draw a light line. So we measured every 2 inches, and the reason why is because we doubled the size of our image. So our reference image was 6 by 9. In order to draw it twice as large, we had to multiply it by 2. So that's why we ended up with 12 by 18 paper, because this is going to be the image times 2 multiplied by 2. All right, now I have all of my lines going up and down. Now I'm missing something. The grid method would not work if it was just this. I need the other lines going across this way. So in order to do that, I'm going to measure every 2 inches again along this side. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and the same thing on the other side. Flip it over. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then once again you'll take your ruler, line it up with those little tick marks that you made, and then again a light pencil line. Draw your line across and keep going down until you have a nice checkerboard across your paper. My lines are actually, I drew them a little darker just so you can see them a little better. As long as you can see them, you should be just fine, so you can keep them very, very light. Again, the grid is just a tool for drawing realistically, especially if you're not used to drawing realistically. If you really try and really spend some time on this, you will be just fine. You will draw a successful drawing. The problems that students run into is they get impatient or they give up. And it always makes me kind of sad to see a student just give up and not even try it. Because drawing with the grid drawing, it's not easy, but like I said, it's a really great way to learn how to draw realistically. And a lot of students who struggle with drawing realistically end up doing a very, very good job with this assignment. All right, we have all of our boxes. Here we go again. We're going to count our boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Awesome. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6. All right. So 6 by 9, basically, only this is a 2-inch grid instead of the 1-inch grid. All right, now you start drawing. This is the fun part. And you can start anywhere on your drawing. I'll tend to start somewhere where, you know, the main subject is. So I might start with like the tip of the ear here, especially if I'm not doing the background. Okay, line up your image again. Okay, and I'm going to kind of pull it down this way so you can still see my image, but see my paper as well. And I know the glare is kind of terrible. Maybe I should move this over. There, I can see it a little better. All right, so the tip of the ear is over 3, right in this box here. And I like I said, I like to start in the corner just because it's a little easier to find the box. If you're really struggling with figuring out which box is which, we can also take a wet erase marker and just write A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 along the side. Same with over here. But I think for the most part, most of you will be okay with this. Now it's all about comparing. So we have the ear here. Kind of move it there. We know it's in this box, but we're not going to just say, okay, well, here's an ear, and okay, I'm done. All right, that doesn't look the same as this box here. It's all about paying attention to one box at a time. Sometimes students find it useful to take a piece of scratch paper. So just grab a piece of scratch paper here, like an index card, and you can measure out a 1-inch box. So I'll kind of just make a mark here. 1. All right. And if you need help making something like this, that's fine. You don't have to make it, but some students find it helpful. And 1/2 inch. I'm just going to kind of sketch it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I folded it in half. I drew half a box, and then I cut on that folded line. And this gives me kind of like a little window. This helps me focus on one box at a time. All right, so I'm just focusing on this one. Oops, and I kind of moved it. Line it back up. Make sure it's lined up. Again, taping it is a good idea. All right, so just this box. And looking at that shape, I do see kind of a triangle shape. It wasn't as big as I drew it before. I'm going to pay attention to where the lines start and end. So I'm imagining that these are lines, kind of like those contour line drawings you've already done. Okay, it's kind of like a curvy triangle. There's a point here, and the point goes about, if I'm comparing it, right about there. That's kind of the tip of the ear. I'm just comparing the width here compared to that width. This part of the ear starts right about here, and this one goes to about here. And then I just have to connect them. So nice and light. I'm not going to press down too hard until I know for sure I'm happy with it. Curves around. All right, that's not too bad. Now, it doesn't look like much yet, but eventually it will once we add some shading to it. And then you can move down maybe to the next box. So the one below it here, whoops, move it down. Okay, this one, it's part of the main, but again, we're just paying attention to this box. So this one, the main, or forelock, kind of cuts across at an angle here. Goes something like that. Actually, maybe even a little further over. And then the lower part of the ear connects this way. I'm not so worried about shading it. I'm just kind of drawing in where things are. I'll just kind of sketch in where the lines of this forelock will go. That kind of helps me keep track. Okay, the next one below that is the side of the eye. So the eye kind of starts over here. And again, if you're taking your time and really paying attention, you will do just fine. It's those students that rush or just give up that really, really struggle with this. It's kind of the shape of the eye. There's kind of a piece of hair there from the horse's mane. I think there's a little marking here. So just contour lines. You can always go back and add more. I'm not worried about shading, just worried about what's in that box. And you just keep going until you have everything drawn out the way you want it to be. And then you're going to add your shading. And that's when you use your blending stumps, your other drawing pencils, maybe even a little bit of charcoal to shade your drawing. As you work, keep your grid and your image in your drawer. Keep these all together. You'll want to keep them in your drawer rather than taking them home. Worst case, if it is homework, you can take them home, but it's really recommended that you keep them in class so you don't lose them, and you'll have plenty of time in class to work on this. When you're all done with your assignment, then you'll need to write your name on it. You'll need to erase the grid if you haven't done that yet. Make sure the shading is all in, and then you'll take your reference image and your final drawing, and you'll just paper clip those together and turn those in. And then I will grade those and check off the reference image. So I'm really going to be paying attention, did you follow the grid? If you didn't follow it, why didn't you? Because this is something that just about anyone can do if they really pay attention and take their time and really try their best. You have to take this slow. You have to really pay attention and really use your eyes to draw well from observation. So that's the grid drawing, how to get it all set up and get started. I hope you have a good time trying this out. If you haven't done this before, it's a great experience to learn how to draw more realistically, and it should be a fun project for kind of ending our drawing unit as, a nice little capstone. So thank you for joining me, and have a fun time drawing your grid drawing.